So I was gripped by something in her speech, and I have to look for it, you know?
He loved the Chicago Cubs for his courage and for his faith. I want to thank the staffers and support you guys. Final conversations that he had. He loved America. He loved nature. And one of the final conversations that he had so well bringing him home. You both are tremendous. I want to thank President Trump and his victims on that terrible afternoon. I want to thank the officers who have protected, and I want to thank Mikey McCoy, who I want to thank the staff. He loved what he did. Charlie here, Vice President.
Fine, I'm just going to repeat it. She basically said every day he asked her how he could serve her better. And at no point did she, in response, Miss Erika Kirk, did she reply at any point about the Paul Pelosi attack? You know, one thing she should have said is, you know how you encouraged your followers to bail out Nancy Pelosi's husband when he was attacked with a hammer, you know, and contribute to the bailout of that man and his bail money, you know, on his October 31st, 2022 episode of his show at around 53 minutes into the video. Kirk said the attack on Paul Pelosi was awful and not right, but he said that someone should bail out the assailant, David DePepe, because cashless bail policies in certain cities allowed people to commit crimes, and he released from custody pending trial. And, you know, she didn't think to say that wasn't cool of him to say, and to start talking about, you know, trying to bail the person who attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband out. You know, you didn't think, you know, to say maybe stop spreading such hateful, awful rhetoric, you know, is all I can think to her. What, like, you do realize that this man has been a fucking massive hate monger, and you didn't say anything about it. You didn't say that it would serve you better to not be such a massive hate monger, you know. Where was you? Where were you on that? You know, Erika Kirk. Why didn't you say anything? I feel that this was a massive abdication of duty on your part. You know, you could have pressured him, you know, to not do things and to say things like, you know, calling for the Patriot movement to bail out, you know, David DePape, you know, and all this other stuff. You know, he had said a bunch of terrible, shitty, awful things, and did you know, ultimately tell him, hey, maybe stop being such a hateful person to tons and tons of people who don't look like you on your podcast. Stop spreading so much goddamn hate for people who don't look like you, and stop, you know, pushing this whole agenda of, you know, the great replacement theory and white nationalism and all this other stuff. You didn't think to say any of that. Also, I keep being pressured, you know, about this because of the fact that she's in this position, that she's in this, you know, well, I mean, how sad for her. She's lost her husband, but she's rich, she's loaded now, she gets all of his money and control over the finances, so her kids and her are just going to have to suffer the emotional turmoil of this and nothing more. That's it. That's all that's going to happen. You know, it's not like Erika Kirk is a woman who has a husband that she's absolutely dependent on, who, you know, essentially, if he dies, she's going to be on the streets, or a single mom. Now, she's been turned into a single mom, but is she a single mom that has to work 3 or 4 jobs and 90 hours a week to provide for her kids because, you know, her husband isn't there to do that for her, and, you know, she's been through a string of men who have not, you know, been great to her and everything, and been, you know, left all the responsibilities to her. You know, she's not that. That's not her story. She's a widow of a rich man who got gunned down, and now she gets to, you know, control of all the finances and everything. And I'm left with the question, you know, Erika, where were you when he did all these terrible things and he said these things? Why didn't you bring them up in those conversations? What's wrong with you?